Hey y'all, Melissa here with you today, and today's project is this strappy sundress. And in fact, you can use the same techniques and pattern, just shortened, to make the tank top I'm wearing as well. So I need you to visit the link below to get the pattern information and then meet me back at the camera when you're ready to sew it up. Alright, let's talk materials and prep work. You're going to have the pattern and you need to cut out a back on the fold, a front on the fold, the neck bands for the front, sorry, this one's the back and the front, and the straps. And then another supply you're going to want is knit interfacing. Now this comes on a bolt, you buy it by the yard, and it's fusible and it stretches, but it also provides some support to the fabric. So I'm using a rayon blend jersey, and that type of fabric has a lot of vertical stretch and it will tend to grow on you as you wear it. So to prepare for sewing this, I've gone ahead and I've fused little 1/2-inch strips of this knit interfacing all down the side seams, and when I stitch that, that's going to help support the side seams so that the dress doesn't get longer on me as I wear it. I've also put some of that in the straps for the same reason, to add some support to this part of the garment. So to put it in the straps and to prepare the straps, what you're going to do is you're going to take your strap fabric, you're going to fold it in half, wrong sides together, and then you're going to press it. So you see I had this nice crease line down the middle. Then open it back up, and on that crease line there is where you want to align the interfacing and fuse it. Then you're going to press the two side seams in towards that center crease. Repress the center crease if you need to. And once those are pressed in, then you're going to fold in half again. So essentially you're making something kind of like double fold bias tape to use for the straps, but this is not bias tape because it is cut with the direction of most stretch running long ways down the strap. The first step to sewing this is going to be to apply the binding to the front and back necklines. So here's my back and here's my back binding, and all I'm going to do is line up that binding right sides together. It will need to stretch just a little bit, and that's part of how the binding helps keep that neckline tight and flat to your body. And there we go. I'm going to stitch along that and then we'll show you the next step. After you have stitched the binding right sides together with the neckline, you're going to press the seam allowance towards the binding, and then you want to wrap the binding over, and then you are going to top stitch it from the right side, so from over here. Once that's all done, it will look like this, because I've gone ahead and completed the front already. This is what it looks like on the right side, and here is what it looks like on the wrong side. Now I used a cover stitch to sew mine. You can use any stretch stitch that can be used for top stitching. You can use a zigzag, you can use a stretch stitch, you can use a twin needle, or if you have a cover stitch machine, you can do this. So just as long as that binding is folded and secured. If you have a bunch of excess binding below your stitching, you can also trim that off. Once the front and back neckline bindings are sewn on, then we will be moving on to the side seams. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how that will work, and then I will finish my back neckline binding. So the side seams, all you need to do is place the two pattern pieces right sides together, and then you're going to stitch down the side seams. So let me go ahead and do those two things, and then we'll deal with the straps. Once you have finished sewing the side seams, it will look about like this. And just a tip for sewing seams, when you have one side that has the interfacing stabilizing it and one side of the fabric that does not. You want to keep the side with the interfacing against your presser foot and the side that does not have it against the feed dogs. And the reason is that is the least likely then to make one fabric kind of pucker against the other, since one has more stretch than the other on those seams. After you've got that done, it's time to turn your dress inside, right side out, and then we're going to talk straps. So you want to take your strap, open it all the way up, and match those short ends and stitch across the short ends. Then what we are going to do, we are going to take one armhole and we're going to match this seam up down at the bottom there with the side seam, and we're going to secure those together. You can use pins, or I'm using Wonder Clips. And then you want to match the strap all the way up that armhole curve on both sides. So you'll stitch right next to that crease line all the way around the strap there. When you are done, here is what it will look like. I've gone ahead and I've done the other side. Okay, so here's my strap, and it was stitched right along that armhole edge. And then the next step is going to be just almost like the neckline binding. You're just going to fold again on those crease lines from when you first did this, and you want the seam allowance pressed up towards the strap binding. And then it really is easier to work on this part with pins and just pin it in place so that that raw seam all gets enclosed inside. And once you get past the edge of the fabric, you're just making sure to fold those raw edges towards the middle so that the folded edges are on the outside, and pinning the strap together until you have a chance to stitch it together. Alright, and then from the right side, you'll just top stitch all the way around that strap. So here's a close-up of what it looks like to sew the straps on my cover stitch. I like to start at that seam line. And again, it doesn't matter if you're using a cover stitch machine or you're using a zigzag or you're using twin needle. As long as it's a stretch stitch, it'll work. Before I get around to the beginning again, I do pull my threads to the back side and knot them. Okay, y'all, once you have sewed those straps, this is what the dress looks like. And then all that's left to do is hem. So to create the hem, which I've gone ahead and done already, you're just going to fold your fabric an inch to the wrong side, and then you're going to stitch it. I chose to use my cover stitch machine again, but you can use any stretch stitch, and in fact I'll include a link to some different hemming options. But once you've got that done, then you're all done and you can wear your dress.